DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, we're not done. I'll give you a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That's the go-getter energy that takes all of this potential energy of mindset and we turn it into kinetic energy, meaning it is energy in motion that makes you a go-getter, person who goes and makes things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then what we do for you right here is we organize all this. We put it into a structured process that you can follow. We have codified our entire system. We made a brand out of this, a whole philosophy and lifestyle out of it. We wrote a book on the subject. We got an open enrollment university, and you're listening to the Daily Masterclass, and all of it is under one umbrella with the same title. It is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, you already know, we are on part 3 of 7, where I'm answering questions from the Prairie High School entrepreneurship class who, well, you already know the deal. I already explained this to you in volume 1 and volume 2. So if you haven't listened to those, I would suggest you do, because I'm answering all the questions that they wrote down from their brief research on me, and I think these questions are very insightful and interesting just to see what kind of things that these young people came up with just from taking a look at my presentation online. Now, a lot of this, as I told you already, will relate very directly to a lot of questions that entrepreneurs ask me, freelancers ask me, athletes, students, or anybody who's interested in working on your game philosophy from whatever angle will be interested in. So let's get into it. Question number 15 we are on now. Question 15. Dre, what is your biggest piece of advice for us as we go on to college and beyond? So this is a question I get asked in many different forms. Some people will ask me things like, well, what would you tell your younger self? Or what would you tell a younger person who's going into college right now? You've kind of been through the things that we're about to go through. What would you tell us? Now, being that the only thing that I know about these students are that you are in an entrepreneurship class, I'm going to tell you what I would tell you based on that angle of entrepreneurship is when you go to college and beyond, one of the most valuable tools that you will have, or the most valuable assets that you can develop, is a better way of saying it, is your ability to build relationships and the people that you know and the friends that you have. I mean, over the previous 2 episodes, how many times have I told you about things working for me? Yes, I did the work. Yes, I had the game. Yes, I had to show up. Yes, I had to deliver. But the opportunities, a lot of those opportunities came from me knowing a person, or knowing a person who knew a person, or being in the right place at the right time, and someone having a favorable opinion of me. I wasn't even in the room, and they mentioned my name, and then something popped off for me. In episode number 1693, the topic was the one best thing for you to focus on for the year 2021, which was, I believe that was on January 1st that episode came out. And I put it out at that time for a specific reason, because this is the one thing that I want you to have for the year. And oftentimes people have lists. Maybe you make a list of goals for the year. You have all these resolutions that you make for the year. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But I want to focus on just one thing. It is people. It is relationships. It is connections. It is your network. I'm sure you've heard somebody say your net work is your net worth. And that's not the whole story. Maybe that can be part of it, but you got to have some game as well in order to build your net worth. You know a whole lot of people, you ain't got no game, doesn't matter. You just have a whole bunch of friends. But the biggest piece of advice that I would give you going to college, if I was to go back to college again, here's the way that I would answer that. What would I do different? I would still kind of bullshit through classes. I would still do just enough work to get by. I graduated with maybe a 2.6 GPA, something like that. I was capable of getting much more than a 2.6 GPA, but I just didn't give the effort because I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to play sports, and I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I also knew at that time, we're talking 2004 here, none of the teachers at Penn State Altoona was teaching anything about the world that we have now. None of them was talking about podcasting or brand building or influencing or YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or social media or internet marketing. None of those things existed, or self-publishing. None of those things existed in 2004. They were on the way. So therefore, my college experience as far as the entrepreneurship goes, they could not have prepared me for the world that I'm in now and the world that we all live in now. And this is why I've said many times, nothing that I learned in my 4 years of college, even though I have a business degree with a focus in management and marketing from Penn State University, nothing that I was taught in those classes helped me do anything that I do today. That is not to say that that can't be the case for you, because when you go to college in 2021, well, now we know about these things. So there are classes on them. There are people teaching about this. You're in high school right now, you have an entrepreneurship class. There was no entrepreneurship class offered when I was in high school. I went to college and there was not an entrepreneurship class. So it's a whole different world that you're in right now. So yes, you can get the value in the classroom that just wasn't available to me at the schools that I went to. However, the most valuable thing that I got from college to this day are the relationships that I built in college, the people that I met, the things that I did, the socializing that I did. Most of my closest friends to this day are people who I met in college. There are a few people from before college and a few people after college, but the closest people, the people that I talk to most often and the people that I most look forward to seeing if I haven't seen for a while and I make sure I stay in touch with, are the people that I met during those 4 years of college. And if I was to go back to college, I would just spend more time making more relationships, meeting more people, socializing more, partying more, playing more basketball, making more friends, going to different places. We did a whole lot of that in college. I would have did more of it if I knew then what I know now. So that's the biggest piece of advice, is build relationships, make friends, network, socialize, move about in and out of different circles, and get to know different people in different places. Because moving forward in life, the most important thing you're going to want is the right phone number, the right email address of the right person who can make something happen for you that you otherwise would not have been able to make happen for yourself. Again, no matter how hard you work, how great of a hustler you are, there's only so much any one individual can do. But when you got the right connections, you can pretty much make anything happen. Question number 16. Again, we're answering questions from the high school entrepreneurship class at Prairie High. Number 16, what does a typical work day or work week look like? It's a great one. Now, right now, just give everyone context. Now I'm getting into questions that I did not get a chance to address when I was on that 45-minute Zoom call appearance with the class. I wish I had gotten to this question, because this is one that I think would be very insightful for the students, and I think for other people as well. And if you've been listening to the show long enough, I've talked about this at different times, but things change over time. So let's give you a typical day, and I'll also give you a typical week. So a typical day for me is I wake up at 3:45 a.m. We already know about this. The first things that I do when I wake up, I do yoga, I do meditation. This is before I leave the house. Yoga, meditation, and usually I shave before I leave the house. And then the first activity outside of the house is exercise. So I'm either doing cardio, outside running, bike riding, or I'm going to the gym and lifting weights. That's the first thing I do. When I'm done with that, I will take a walk. I usually take a walk every day. Now I live in South Florida, so the weather is nice enough that you can take a walk pretty much every day over the course of a year. And a cold day, for example, today I'm recording, is like 55 degrees outside. This is pretty much as cold as it gets in South Florida all year. So then I take a walk, and the next thing that I do once I get back to the house, I'm having my protein shake. Then I'm eating some spinach or some super spinach. And those of you who follow me on Instagram, you see my Instagram stories, you know about the spinach. So I eat raw spinach straight out of the box. One box every day is about a 5-ounce box. Then by the time all of that is done, it's about 7:30 a.m. And at this point, that's when I'm checking email. That's when I'm looking at text messages. That's when I'm looking at social media platforms to see if anything that I need to respond to happened the previous day. And I use social media as my news source. I do not watch the news. I told you about that in a certain episode. I'll tell you what episode that is. That is episode number 1474. Stop watching the news, because it's not the news anymore. It's the opinion mixed in with whatever facts they decide to add into it every single day. But anyway, that's when I again start checking my messages and things like that. That's around 7:30 a.m. At 8 o'clock a.m. every single day, I have a live one-on-one call with my executive assistant. Her name is Rim. She and I talk about the previous day. We talk about any meetings or appointments or interviews, etc., that we are scheduling or is being asked of us that we're planning on. So we make sure that our schedule is on point. We look at our Airtable. I told you about Airtable in the last episode. That is basically our project management, where we know exactly what we're working on. I can see what she's doing. She knows what I'm doing. We hold each other accountable. She says, well, Dre, I need you to finish this. I need you to fill out this form. I need you to finish writing the answers to these questions that somebody asked. We can do this interview for this magazine or this online post. Or, hey, do you want to do this interview with this podcast? They're offering it next Tuesday or next Thursday. Which day is best? And I've taught her how to look at the calendar and use it and actually make those decisions for me, so I don't have to answer those questions. So piece by piece, where I'm making her more autonomous to where she can basically control the schedule and knows everything that's going on. So we have that call at about 8 o'clock. That call goes anywhere from Rem and I, when I first hired her, we would have conversations that would be 2-3 hours because I was training her on a lot of things. Nowadays, we have conversations that go 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It depends on what we're working on. So we always have different projects that we're working on at different times. That goes from, let's just say, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. By 9 o'clock, I'm working. 8 o'clock is starting work as well. But by 9 o'clock, I'm just doing work. And my work over the course of a day, there are 3 specific things that I'm good at. And they're the things that I focus on. That is speaking, whether that be on this microphone, on a video camera, or writing. Actually, it's 2 things. So when I'm saying speaking, that can be video, that can be in person, that can be on somebody's show, it can be this podcast. So speaking encompasses all of that. And then writing is the other thing. So any of you who's on my email list or you read any of my books, you see that I am pretty prolific when it comes to writing. I do a lot of writing. We send out emails 5 times a week, at the least 3 times a week on a slow week, but a lot of times 5 times a week, sometimes 7 days a week. We send out emails. I write all of my material. I do not hire ghostwriters. I do all of my writing, all of my books, all of that. So over the course of a day, from the time that call ends with Rim, let's say 9 o'clock, up to, I'm trying to give myself a hard stop of 5 p.m. because it helps me get better sleep when I get to bed earlier. I'm trying to give my a hard stop of 5 p.m. So let's say from 8 to 5 pretty much is my work time. Sometimes I can go a little bit over, and depending on whatever appointments or anything is happening in between, it can be a little bit shorter. But over the course of my day, that's pretty much my work day, is doing those things. And in between, I could be working on a book. I could be doing interviews. I could be recording this show right here. I could be writing articles. I could be whatever else you see come out of work on your game. That is what's happening between that time. So it's not like a set, all right, at 2 o'clock every day I do this, at 3 o'clock I do this. Doesn't really work like that. No, I'm part of coaching programs. I have my own coaching program, so I may be doing coaching calls. I may be doing live event calls. I may be doing interviews, customer interviews, prospect interviews. I'm in coaching programs, so I might be on the live calls as an attendee in those programs, talking to people. I might be talking to individuals who maybe will be doing some strategic partnerships moving forward. All of that's happening in that work time every single day. So my work day is not the same every day. It can change from day to day. For example, in this upcoming week, I will be going to, I got a physical therapy appointment that I need to go to. We got our daily check-ins, daily huddle that I have every day with Rem. I have a weekly check-in with Nico, who's my audio guy. We talk to each other once a week just to see what's going on, make sure we're on the same page with everything. Then there's coaching calls that I have. There are a couple podcast appearances I have coming up in the next week, and more that might get scheduled. We have a monthly Q&A call is coming up for Work on Your Game University. All members are available to come into that. One-on-one coaching calls that I have. And yeah, that's just the upcoming week. But that schedule could change because somebody could hit us back and say, hey, we're interested in having you on. Could you come on in short notice because you do a show on Wednesday? I'm recording this on a Sunday, for example. So that's what my typical day looks like in a typical week. I just explained. So it is not always the same every single day. The only thing that is set in stone, the only things that are set in stone from the time I wake up at 3:45 a.m. until 9 a.m., that's pretty much set in stone. Yoga, meditation. I eat a couple bananas. That's what I have for breakfast. I don't sit down to eat a meal for breakfast, by the way. I eat lunch and I eat dinner, and I get my meals delivered, so I do not cook. That's 3:45. Then there's the bananas. I drink water. I drink about 5-6 liters of water every single day. I try to stop drinking water by about 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern because I go to bed. Oh yeah, I didn't even finish the day. I end up going to at 5 o'clock when I finish my day. I have lunch around 11, maybe 10:30 even, 11 o'clock. I eat my dinner around 4 o'clock. 5 o'clock, I'm done working. I take another walk in the evening. That'll be somewhere between 5 and 6:30 p.m. I take that walk depending on what I'm doing work-wise. Maybe I'm on a call or something like that. Then once I'm home, I try to be in bed. I don't go to sleep yet, but I'm trying to be in bed by like 7:15 p.m. And then what else am I doing? That's it. And I try to be asleep by 8 o'clock. If I'm asleep by 8 o'clock, I'm a little bit late. I try to get to bed a little bit earlier than that so I can get more than 8 hours of sleep. But that's the typical day. But from 3:45 a.m. to 7, the first 4 hours of my day is all for me. That is not work time. That's working out, going to the gym, meditating, yoga, drinking water, exercising, recovery, things like that. So that's when I get to listen to podcasts. I listen to this podcast myself. That's what I'm doing over the course of a typical day. And then over the course of a typical week, those are set in stone. My call with Rim is set in stone. But then everything from 9 to 5, it's whatever happens to be on the calendar. So that's what my typical day looks like in my typical week. Question number 17. Today's topic, once again, is I'm answering questions from, question number 17, answering questions from Prairie High School's entrepreneurship class. What do you like most about your work and what do you like least? This is another really good question. I'm not saying that to patronize you all. I really do like these questions. What I like most about what I do as the CEO of this company is that my business, Work on Your Game, is based on me being who I am. As I told you in one of the previous questions that was asked, the way that I am on this microphone, the way that I am on camera, the way I am on stage giving a keynote or giving a TED Talk, the way I am writing my books is the exact same person I am if you see me out in the streets and there's no cameras. It's the exact same person, the same personality. So basically I have made a business around being myself. Now that is, I couldn't ask for a better job. That's what I love doing. So when, again, way back in the day when I saw the opportunity of the internet being the internet, that you could publish yourself and put yourself out there into the world and broadcast yourself, as YouTube used to have as their tagline. I don't know if they even still use that. That was just that was like the heavens parting and the sky just shining on me back in 2005 when I saw that opportunity. So that's the best part of it, is that this business is based on me being myself. I built a brand and business around my personality and the way that I think and the things that I believe, and those are the things that I put out. There's no stage version of me versus the off the stage version of me. It is the exact same person all across the board. That's my favorite part of it. And just the fact that I'm able to put that out there and people feel it. It resonates with people. That's the thing that I like best. And the question is, what do I like least? It's not really about me liking least certain parts of this work. It's, I would say, the most challenging parts of the work is the way that I would reword this question. And here's a little note for any of you who ever do any kind of interviews or you do an open Q&A. If someone asks you a question and you don't quite like the way the question is phrased, because no matter how you answer it is not really what you want to say, answer a different question. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm taking this question, what do I like least, and I'm changing it to a different question, which is, what is the most challenging part of the job? The most challenging part of this work is that even though it's cool to have a brand built around you and you can have people know your name and they think you're cool and they listen to your show and they follow you on social media and they say they like your videos and all of that, all of those things are great, but understand that we are also a business. I'm the CEO of a company. So as the CEO, my job is not only to put this stuff out here and make people like it and have fans and followers and people enjoy the stuff and all that and entertain you. We also have to make money from what we do. So in order to make money from what we do, we have to do the work to figure out how do we translate this people liking us and this philosophy that people are feeling and these videos we put out for free and this podcast we put out for free, these articles we write for free. How do we translate this stuff into actual revenue, things coming across that counter? You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to make transactions happen. So that is the challenge of the business. Now, that's not something that I don't like. I enjoy that challenge because that's what makes you a business person. What makes you an entrepreneur is not the fact that you have fans and followers and subscribers. What makes you an entrepreneur is that you're running something where money is being made. All right, there's scans happening. You know when you go to the grocery store and they got the self-checkout and you can scan, every time you scan that item, that little beep happens. All right, that means a transaction is occurring and somebody's going to pay for something. All right, we like that beep. So our job as a company is figuring out how do we take this philosophy and this idea of Dre Baldwin, this idea of Dre all day, this idea of work on your game, and how do we turn this into something people can pay for? How can we take the work on your game philosophy and turn it into a speech and get somebody to pay me a keynote fee to give that speech? How can we take the work on your game philosophy, put it into a book, and get someone to pay $25 for the hardcover book? We're going to give you the bonuses as well for free and throw that in, and then we'll take you to the next step of the sales funnel and the next step and the next step. Any of you listening to this who has claims your free copy of my book, The Mirror of Motivation, you see, we're going to offer you, we're not just going to give you the book for free, we're going to offer you something else. So how about you get this bundle right here? We'll offer you something else. We'll offer you something else. And we're going to keep offering you things because we want to give you more value. And to give you more value, we have to come up with more value, and you understand that value is worth it, is actually worth 10 times what we're asking you to pay for it. And that's why you're willing to make that exchange. So that is part of the game in entrepreneurship. And anyone who's going to be a CEO of a company, your job is figuring out how's the money getting made. Right? And that's a big part of the business, that when you're out here brand building or influencing, you still have to ask yourself, where's the money going to come from? So that is the challenging part of the job, the most challenging part of the job, but it's the fun part of the job because that's the game. All right, that's the business game, is making the money. So that's my answer to that. That's my answer to that question number 17. Question number 18. And we're answering questions from the entrepreneurship class at Prairie High School. Number 18, how long did it take for your vision to initially, quote, blow up, close quote, and become real? Well, there was honestly, for me, there was no real inflection point where I said, all right, everything has blown up now. It wasn't really like that for me. And this is something important that I want people to take from this, especially those of you who are content creators, brand builders, freelancers, solopreneurs, and entrepreneurs, CEOs on the rise, or perspective, any of those, is that I never had a piece of content go viral, not one. I published more content than anyone over the last 16 years online. No one has published more original content than I have. However, I've never had a single piece of content go viral. I never had one of my books go viral. I never had a podcast episode or a post go viral. And when I think of some of the people that we know online, I can think of things that they put out that went viral. Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, kind of went viral. It became a New York Times bestseller and sold millions of copies. And that's, that book, whatever he made off that book, the royalties from that book, is what put him in position to not need to do anything else if he didn't want to do anything else. Even a guy like Gary Vee, he had this speech that he gave. I forget the name of the conference that he was at, but he gave this speech that actually, I liked the speech because it was the first I'd heard anybody talking like this. It had to be maybe 2006, 2007. He was speaking at some conference and he was just talking about this whole hustle thing that he's known for, this hustle culture. And this was, again, 15 years ago, damn near, he was talking about this. And that speech is what blew him up. And that's when people started really knowing him. Somebody like Eric Thomas, he had that speech where he was speaking in, it looked like he was talking to some middle schoolers or some high schoolers. And when he said, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, that's when you become successful. And he blew up off of that. That went viral. Dre Baldwin never had anything go viral. So for me, it was just step by step, day by day, piece by piece, content by content. One day at a time. Any of you who follows me on social media, you look at my Instagram story, you see me all the time. I post the little pictures and the videos of the buildings under construction in Miami. And what do I put as the hashtag every time? One day at a time. They just show up every day. They do the work and slowly it builds. Sometimes you might get lucky and things go viral. You can't control something going viral. Sometimes you get lucky and things will go viral and it'll pop off and now the whole world knows your name overnight when nobody knew you the day before. The other times, maybe you won't be that lucky and you just got to do it the hard way. You got to do it the slow way, piece by piece, step by step, and build it. So for me, how long did it take for my vision to blow up and become real? Well, it took me 16 years. From the day of my first piece of content, my first blog post back in May of 2005, because I actually started blogging before YouTube. So from that blog post to this very day when you're listening to this, that's how long it's taken. And until something goes viral, that's how long it's going to keep taking. So again, there was never any one thing that made everything blow up for me. It was just day by day putting in that work. And that's what this whole philosophy is based on. What do I tell y'all every day? The discipline to show up day after day to do the work. I live the message that I tell y'all. Number 19, the questions that I'm answering here today, we're in volume 3. Questions from Prairie High School Entrepreneurship class. Question 19, what is some key advice you could give to any individual who is trying to create their own company or product? i.e. what is needed / crucial steps. So an individual who wants to create their own company or create their own product, first of all, is talk to your prospects. Who are the people that you want to help? And if you're not quite sure who you want to help or how you want to help them, ask yourself what challenge you have. That can be a good way to start. And a lot of entrepreneurs start their businesses by doing exactly that. What challenge do I have? And then helping other people with the same thing that they needed themselves help with. Tim Ferriss, for example, wrote the 4-Hour Workweek based on the fact that he was experiencing burnout as the CEO of his company, and he was about to go crazy. He talked about this. He bought a one-way ticket to like London or something from the United States where he was living and told his staff, look, don't call me for anything. Y'all handle everything, because he was about to lose his mind. He was like becoming, just exhaustion that he was going through mentally, because he was spending 70 hours a week running this company. He was making money, but he was going crazy. So he was like, there has to be a better way of doing this. And the fact that he needed to scratch that itch for himself led to what became the 4-Hour Workweek, the entire concepts and everything that he put out there, because it was driving him crazy. So the key advice that I would give you is maybe look at the issues that you have yourself, resolve those issues, and in resolving them, you will come upon some challenges that other people also have. So for me, it was Basketball players need to learn how to play basketball, so I helped them with that. I needed that help, so I helped them with the thing that I needed myself. Then it was, I know a lot of people needed mindset help, that maybe they had the skills, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to translate those skills into actual performance. Or maybe they had no game and needed to develop game. Or maybe they had game and they were performing, but nobody was recognizing them. And my book, Work on Your Game, is for those three specific types of people. People who don't have game and need to develop it, number one. Number two, people who have game, but they just need to get better at showing it. And number three, people who have game and they feel they're showing it, but nobody is recognizing them for it. So those are the three challenges that I had in my life. And I had them in my career. I had them in sports. I also had them in the business world. I resolved those challenges. On this show, I talk about that all the time. These same things every single time. Every episode of the show is related to one of those three things, guaranteed. And that's the itch that I needed to scratch for myself. And I know other people had that challenge, and that's what I talk about. So the key advice that I'm giving you is figure out what challenge you are resolving. You need to know what problem you're solving for people, because even if you have a great product, if it doesn't solve a specific challenge and or you can't explain what challenge you're resolving, then people won't understand it. And they don't understand it, they won't do anything with it. People who are confused take no action. All right? People who are confused do not ask questions. People who are confused do nothing. So that's the number one thing I would tell an individual who's trying to create their own product. When it comes to creating a company, then you need to create structure around this to where the difference between having a product and having a company is that you have some structure, meaning there's a process to how you do things. There's some predictability in the way that you're making things happen. And usually if it's going to be a company, you're going to need more than one person. So get some other people on board who can do things that you can't do, or that you won't need to do, or that you won't do, or that you're not capable of doing. Get other people on board so that you have some process, some structure, and some organization, and hopefully at least a little bit of predictability around what you're doing in your business. These are things that even now, as I've been in business technically selling products for over 10 years, I'm still learning and getting better at these things. So it's always a work in progress. It's never to the point where you can just say, I'm good, I don't need to get better in anything. There's always some way to be improving. So that's the advice I would give anyone who is creating their own company or creating their own product. Question number 20. The topic here is, again, we're answering questions from the Prairie High School Entrepreneurship class. Question number 20, favorite place playing basketball. I get asked this question often, and I have to cheat whenever I answer this question because I have to give you two answers. So actually, I got to give you three. I'll give you three answers of favorite places playing basketball. And actually, I can give you more than three. I can give you like five. I'm gonna give you 5 places that are favorites for basketball. Each one has each one holds its space for a reason. Place number one, favorite place playing basketball would be Finley Recreation Center, which is in Mount Airy, Philadelphia, uptown. That's the neighborhood that I come from. That's the part where I initially started playing ball. That's the part where I initially developed my game. That's the part where I kept going to and working on my game, even when I was getting cut from the high school team over and over again. And none of this that we have now, that you know me for now, would exist if it wasn't for the time that I spent at Finley working on my game. So that definitely has to be number one. Number 2 place that I would name as one of my favorites would be Jose Marti Recreation Center, which is in Miami, Florida. I can actually see it out of the window where I live right now. That is the gym where I recorded 99% of the YouTube videos that many people came to know me for. That empty gym where nobody else was there, when I brought my camera and recorded all those videos, all those drills, that was in Jose Marti gym. And that gym is open to anybody. Anybody can come in there. You pay the entry fee or get a membership. It's pretty cheap. It's a city-owned gym. I should buy that gym and just make it the Work on Your Game facility. But anyway, that's a different conversation for a different day. And it is great real estate, actually, a great location. They probably wouldn't sell it to me. But that gym definitely has to go on the list because a lot of people would not know me if it wasn't for the videos that I made in that gym. Number 3 place would be, now we get into pro basketball, will be Kaunas, Lithuania. That is the first place that I ever traveled outside of the United States. That was the first job that I had playing ball, was in Kaunas, Lithuania. And I still remember to this day just walking around that town, and it was just a surreal feeling of, here I am, this American kid, 23 years old, played at a D3 school, and here I am in Lithuania with euros in my pocket, walking around this town. And there were a few other Americans in town with me who were also ball players, and we're just walking around, and I'm like, this is crazy. I'm in Europe playing basketball for a living. This is all based on my ability to play basketball. So I will always remember fondly just being in Kaunas, Lithuania. Unfortunately, that was in 2005. We didn't even have smartphones at the time, so I barely have any photos. Actually, don't have any photos from my time being in Lithuania, but I know that did actually happen. The fourth answer would be, there's another one overseas, would be Herceg-Novi, Montenegro. The reason why this is one of my favorite places, this is my favorite place on the court professionally playing basketball. And the reason is, when I was in Herceg-Novi, the coach of that team, well, first of all, before we get to the coach, the way the schedule was set up when I was playing in Montenegro was we only had a game once a week. The game was every Saturday, usually in the evenings. So during the week, Monday through Friday, we had practice every day, and our practice was twice a day. So we had 10 practices for every one game. Twice on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then there'd be a game on Saturday. And our practices were over there, they were really into shooting. And maybe that's just my perspective on it, because I remember the first day that I was in practice, and they just got me on the court. They said, we just want to see how you play, get a feel for what your game is so we know how we use you. That's what the coach said to me. And the coach didn't even speak English, by the way. So he said this to someone else, and they translated and said it to me. And I said, all right, fine. And the challenge was on the court in there. Any of you who's a basketball player, you know this challenge. The floor was very slippery. There was very little traction on the court. So it was hard to really get grip. So when you can't get grip with your sneakers on the playing surface when you're playing basketball, it's hard to do explosive moves. It's hard to do a crossover. It's hard to blow by somebody off the dribble. It's hard to do dribbling moves because you can't start and stop because the floor is so slippery. You can't stop on a dime and move in a different direction. And in those situations, what I would always default to when I can't really get traction, that means I can't really use my quickness and explosiveness, and I would use my shooting ability. So because the floor was so damn slippery, all I did in that first practice, I would just use jab steps and fakes to create space, and I would just shoot jumpers. And I was making every shot. I was just making every jump shot the first day that the coach saw me play. And this became the coach's impression of me. And as they say, first impressions are hard to break. So because I was making all those jump shots in that first day in practice, the coach always looked at me as like this shooter. That's all he wanted me to do was shoot jump shots. He didn't care about my athleticism. He didn't care about me driving to the basket. All he wanted me to do was shoot jumpers. So even sometimes in practice, I'd be open for a shot and I would fake like I was going to shoot to draw the defense in, drive to the basket and make a layup or make a dunk. And the coach would be like, no, don't do that. Shoot the three-pointer. He would always want me to shoot three-pointers. So because we practiced twice a day, every day, I shot so many jump shots in all the practices in the time that I was in Montenegro. My jump shot was like automatic. I was like Stephen Curry when I was playing in Montenegro because we spent so much time shooting that my shot was like automatic. So I always remember Herceg-Novi fondly because of the fact that my shot was just automatic during that time. And also because, as I wrote in my book, Work on Your Game, getting that contract to play in Montenegro came after a period when I sent out thousands of emails to pro basketball teams trying to get myself back in the game because I spent the previous year without a contract. And getting that gig validated that I knew how to hustle my way into an opportunity. So for two reasons in Montenegro. And then the fifth answer to this question, favorite place playing basketball, this is not even about the on-the-court experience, but this was in Mexico. I was in Mexico in 2006. And the thing about playing basketball in Mexico, or even just being in Mexico, I guess we can say, but I'll say playing basketball because that's why I was there, is that it was completely unpredictable. You had no idea what was going to happen from day to day in Mexico. I got 3 different infections in Mexico. I got an eye infection that had me thinking that I was going blind because I barely could even see. My vision became so blurry when I was there. And I'll tell you, I'll get to that in a second. I had a foot infection where I couldn't even play basketball because my toe was hurting so bad that I could barely walk. I was on crutches for a few days. And there was one other infection. And I had like food poisoning. I remember my bowel movements were blood for about a week in Mexico. And here's the crazy thing about all 3 of those infections. All right, so that was at the top of my body, the middle of my body, and the bottom of my body in Mexico. Here's the crazy thing about all 3 of those infections. When I told my coach or my agent about these situations, and these are Mexican guys, they would take me to some hospital or some pharmacy, and then they would talk to the person there, and they're talking in Spanish, and the conversation's going on in Spanish. And I understood Spanish pretty good, but not fluently to where I could pick up on what the conversations were. They got me some type of medicine, some medicine for my foot, some medicine for my food infection. What did I call it? Food poisoning, and some medicine for my eyes. And that was the one that I was most concerned with. Like, you just can't take anything for your eyes. Like, what if something goes wrong with your vision? And I had no idea what these medicines were. I had no idea what they were called. I had no idea what it said on the labels of these things. But my agent was just like, yo, just take this. This will fix. I'm like, what is it? What is it about? What does it mean? What do these things say on the label? He's like, man, just take it. It'll fix your eyes. It'll fix your food poisoning. It'll fix your foot so you can play in the games again. And I just took them. And luckily, by the grace of God, these things worked. So 3 times I had different infections in Mexico. Had no idea what kind of medications I was taking, but they ended up working out. But I did pick up on Spanish really good playing basketball in Mexico. Another thing that happened in Mexico, more than once, I got approached by police officers who had these big guns strapped around their chests. As Mexico's a third world country. So the way that their laws are and the way that things happen there is way different than how it happens in the United States. And again, I got good enough at speaking Spanish that I was able to not even work with, but I was able to deal with police in a way that I could explain what I was doing and they left me alone. There was once we got robbed, me and a teammate of mine, we got robbed in Mexico at about 2 o'clock in the morning. We were walking home from a club and we didn't even know how to get home. So we were trying to figure out how to get home from a club. We were in the middle of this random residential street and we got pulled up on, we got robbed. And actually we didn't get robbed. My teammate got robbed because I didn't even have any money on me. He got robbed. He didn't even have that much. He had like 40 pesos, but the cops robbed him of it. And yes, you heard me right. That was the cops. The cops robbed us. It was not some random always thugs in the street. The police pulled up on us and robbed him of his money. And then they gave us a ride home after they robbed him. So believe that, if you believe that happened. And it all happened in Mexico, and so many other things happened in Mexico. I could write a whole book about my experience in Mexico. So those are my 5 favorite places playing basketball. How was that for an answer for you? Question number 21, last one for today. And again, I'm answering questions from the Prairie High School Entrepreneurship class, number 21. How did your earlier career choices lead to where you are now? This is a great question. And my career choices, well, the first choice that I made was that I was going to pursue basketball. And the fact that I pursued basketball and was able to make it happen, the ending of that story, the fact that it worked, is what led to work on your game being what it is now. And the fact that people can say, hey, this guy, he had this goal and he made it happen. He was able to make this turn out and become something. This is a guy to follow because he had this goal, he had this dream, he did it, and now he has a philosophy of how he made it happen. And I told you about in episode number 1211, 1211. Here's the thing. And sometimes in life, you're going to have a vision for making something happen and it does not work out. You tried it, you worked hard for it, you gave everything you had, and you do not get the result. And there are going to be other times in life when you have that same vision, the same goal, and you try and you work, and it does work out. Now, the question is, since you won't know whether it's going to work out or not until you go for it, how do you know ahead of time whether you should keep trying because you are a visionary and it's going to produce a result, like Steve Jobs with the iPhone, Tim Ferriss with the 4-hour work week, Dre Baldwin work on your game, or if you're an idiot who is going to fail and you should probably give up on this and just take it out in the back and shoot it, as Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank always says. How do you know whether you're a visionary who should keep going or a delusional idiot who should probably quit? The answer is you don't know. And for posterity's sake, the only way that gets determined whether you were the visionary who was just this wise person or a delusional fool who wasted all your energy is the ending of the story. So how did my earlier career choices lead to where I am now? Well, the short answer is the end of the story. And again, this is episode 1211 where I talk about this. Because my vision of making it as a basketball player, despite all my setbacks, because it worked out, now I can tell this story and I look all high and mighty and look like a superstar and a superhero because it worked. But let's just say I put the same effort into basketball and I never made it pro. Let's say I didn't even make it onto a college basketball team. Let's say I never put those videos on YouTube and didn't become known for being a pioneer in putting athlete workouts on the internet. Let's say none of those things happened, but I had given the exact same effort. Would I be who I am now? Would I be where I'm at right now? Would I have been asked to speak to your class the way that I was? The answers are no, no, and hell no. Now, you might think that that's kind of messed up. You might say, like, damn, that's kind of harsh. It's kind of cold. I would say I concur. That's correct. And that's just what it is. In life, the fact that you end up turning your story and your situation into a success is what makes everybody come knocking on your door and saying, hey, can you come speak? Can you come give a speech? Can you come talk to our class? Can you write a book about this? Can we ask you some questions? Can I interview you? Why? Because the ending of your story was a success. But if you put in the same effort, the same work, the same time, energy, attention, money, and focus, and you do not get the result, nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to interview you. No one wants to read your book. Nobody wants to give you a speech. Wants you to give a speech. Why? Because we don't want people who lost to give a speech. We don't want to hear from the people who lost. All right, nobody wants to pay them to give a speech. We don't want to hear from the winners. And as the saying goes, the winners are the ones who write history books. So when you're in history class or you read anything about history and they tell you this is the way that things went, well, listen, that book was written by the people who won. All right, the people who lost the war, the people who got their heads chopped off, the people who got their wives got sold into slavery and the men all got murdered, or they don't get to tell their story. So is history really telling you the story of what actually happened? Probably not. All right, any history book you read is not the real history, because the only people who were allowed to write the books are the people who won. All right, so they're going to tell it in a way that makes them look a certain way. So you can take that to really consider what you're reading and what you're hearing about. Anytime you hear about something that happened in the past, it's only written by the people who had the power to write, if you understand what I'm saying. All that to answer this question. My career choices is not even my choices that led me to where I am now. Yes, my choices did, but it's the results of my career choices that led me to where I am now. Because if the results had not been the results, all right, I wouldn't be here giving this episode right now, because somebody else would be here because they're the ones who succeeded and I was the one who failed. And that's what it is. All that said, I've answered all the questions for this volume. Tomorrow we'll go into volume 4. Again, answering the questions from the Prairie High School Entrepreneurship class. If you have not yet claimed your free copy of my book, Work on Your Game, not Work on Your Game, Mirror Motivation, you get Work on Your Game. We'll offer you that on the very next page of the funnel. So go to mirrormotivation.com. All you do is take care of a small shipping charge. We'll ship that book to you worldwide. And you should be hearing at the end of this episode, you probably already heard before, but you can send me a text. And yes, it is really my number. Yes, I will respond to you. Number is 305-384-6894. Send me a text, say what's up. Let me know you're enjoying the show. Ask me a question if you want to. You got a challenge, ask me. If you're not sure it is me, you think it might be a bot, challenge me, test me. I'll prove to you that it's actually me. That's 305-384-6894. Send me a text, holler at me. Work on your game. Dre, all